Welcome to the A.L.I.V.E. Active Shooter Survival Training Program, where the experts break down active shooter incidents to discuss and assess each event to help you stay alive. This is your host, security expert and creator of the A.L.I.V.E. Active Shooter Survival Training Program, Michael Julian.
Welcome, everyone, to the next episode of the A.L.I.V.E. Active Shooter Survival Training Program podcast. I've got a couple of guests joining me today, and I'm going to introduce them in a second. As the listeners and watchers know, this is a bi-weekly podcast put on by the Active Shooter Survival Training Program. And we talk about different topics. Well, all topics are related to active shooter. But most of them are, when there are events, we talk about the events, we break them down, and we see how the training, the A.L.I.V.E. training, might have helped people react properly to survive or highlight the good things that they have done. I just last Friday attended a church active shooter survival program. It was an all-day program put on by a company similar to mine out of the Midwest. It was a pretty good program. There was a lot of parallels, so that's always refreshing because I see that other companies are teaching the good stuff and not the bad stuff, which is scaring people before they teach them how to respond to these sort of things. But it was very interesting. And again, the principles, the foundation, the fundamentals of active shooter can be applied in churches or anywhere, but it was neat to see it actually applied and tour the church. And I took several pictures to see, kind of think how would you apply live in these certain situations. So it was a really good class. So joining me today, we're going to, from a company called EAGL Technology, which is an Albuquerque-based sensor company established in 2015 in response to mass shooting events and terrorist threats in the U.S. and abroad. It is this company provides a service that is essentially shock detection. It's not really a hearing, but an energy sensing system. And with me today from that company is Jennifer Russell. She's a senior vice president and co-founder of this technology. She's a Boston native and U.S. Navy Gulf veteran. So thank you very much for your service, Jennifer. And a physical security specialist with over 13 years of experience. Jennifer worked with Pacific Northwest national labs to develop a viable, affordable, and scalable indoor and outdoor active shooter mitigation technology, which they call EAGL. Also, David Galouche, he's a West Coast Regional Business Manager, Business Development Manager for EAGL Technology. He's also a U.S. Navy veteran. David, thank you for your service. Retired law enforcement officer of 26 years. He's got an extensive background in emergency response teams, SWAT, and firearms training, and 15 plus years in global security management. So I want to thank you for both being here and welcome you to the A.L.I.V.E. podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Michael.
So, I have not had on this podcast before a company that provides a system or technology or product or anything in relation to active shooter survival. For one reason, we've only been doing these podcasts for a few months, but two, I have not necessarily been in talks or conversations with companies that provide what you guys provide and felt strongly enough to say, hey, let's bring them on and talk about what they have. I will do more of it in the future as I'm comfortable with other programs. But after talking with Dave and then the conference call, Jen, you and I had, and kind of going over your product and watching the videos and so forth, I have to say that I'm pretty comfortable. I don't know if endorsing is the right word, but partnering certainly isn't the right word, but I would say co-branding or sharing your technology with my viewers and my clients, because I have always said that there will be a shift in this paradigm. Things will start to change because right now active shooter events are going like this, and someday I believe they'll start to go like that. It's not going to be anytime soon, but it will be because of training like the A.L.I.V.E. program and technology and products like EAGL Technology has. I think active shooter, or rather shot detection, if it's a good system, it is imperative. and also intrusion detection, or excuse me, intrusion deterrence, or things that will actually stop someone from getting into a room, and the training to do what is necessary once this active shooter threat or active killer threat begins. So I want to welcome you guys to the podcast, and thank you for being here. So who wants to go? Somebody tell me about, tell my viewers and listeners about the EAGL technology product, how it works. Give us an overview, a snapshot, so we kind of understand that.
Would you like me to go, Dave? Would you like to speak to it?
I'll let you, since you're the VP and senior VP and the founder, I'll let you go first and let me know if you need me to back you up anymore.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Michael, so a little bit about EAGL. We actually, the Department of Energy was one of my customers in the physical security space for a number of years, and had made it known to me that they were going to be developing a wireless gunshot sensor shortly after the Sandy Hook incident. And they had asked if it would be possible for us to integrate this particular sensor that they were developing into existing building security systems, cameras, access control, emergency notification, and all those kind of things. And so, that started the odyssey for us. We began building the EAGL. We started to, have focus groups, after action reports of all the prior incidents. We reviewed them wholly and entirely and 100 times, what has to happen. We wanted to, get the notifications out a lot sooner to law enforcement than waiting for the first 911 call. And we wanted this to be primarily autonomous, so that while people are in a state of panic and not knowing what to do, the system will take over and push out those notifications, live stream cameras so we can get situational awareness, and also activate any other particular countermeasure technology that might be helpful for that situation.
So Jennifer, so essentially, and if you can touch on the difference between energy detection and sound detection, because you've both made it clear to me that this is not just a listening device. This is something that literally detects the physical change in atmosphere. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir. So with the Pacific Northwest National Labs, they were able to determine that there's a very specific energy level that's created from the discharge of a firearm. There's like a snap. The sensors, which are passive, are kind of come alert when there's whatever that baseline energy level is for .22 caliber. The sensors are going to come alert, grab the waveform of the round traveling through the air. This is all executing in half a millisecond, pushing it out to the EAGL server, and then whatever scenario is built into that particular sensor to have activate will start activating within about 4 seconds. The energy level and the waveform is very unique. The reason that the Department of Energy created this in particular is that we looked at in the focus groups, and we saw with the Sandy Hooks and things like that, is that the wired technology that had been deployed and has been out in the field and been in the marketplace for a long period of time was acoustic signature match technology. It has it's very power hungry. It has a high false read rate. It required, Cat 6 power to be brought to every sensor that deployed along the wall. It was very cumbersome and very expensive to deploy. And so, we went with the Pacific Northwest National Labs, wanting to go wireless, making the deployments on the ceiling, more coverage areas, 31,415 square feet per sensor, to make it more affordable and easily deployed and very scalable.
Okay. That's pretty technological stuff, which is over my head, but that's okay because, that's what we have smart people like you for, because I don't understand any of that. But essentially, and by the way, can you show the sensors? That's pretty cool, because one of the first things that I thought of is if you put this in a school, kids are going to be kids and they're going to knock them off the wall. But those are put on the ceiling and they look like any other fire alarm or sensor or whatever. That's not the type of thing they're probably going to screw with if they even notice, right?
Correct, and that was one of the biggest things. The sensor itself is about the size of a 50-cent piece, the diameter of a golf ball, and we encase it in this IP67 case. It's battery operated, a 7-year battery life. This is a passive sensor, just like a smoke detector. It's going to sit up on the ceiling. You can have these all different colors and what have you. You don't even notice that they're there. And it's basically waiting for that crack from the discharge of a firearm. It will come alert. That's when it's going to grab that waveform. And then whatever's programmed into this sensor, which is we call adaptive response. I want to live stream cameras 1, 2, 3, 4. I want to call Bill, Sue, and Sam. I'm calling 911. I'm going to tell everybody in the building to safety in place because there's a threat outside. Or I'm going to tell everybody on the floor 2 that there's a threat on floor 1. So I'm providing that situational awareness autonomously. We're also alerting 911 and anybody else who's on the security detail that has to respond, whether it be an SRO in a school situation, police departments, law enforcement, CSOs, and a corporate environment. Whoever's on the list will get notified.
All right. So, and one thing that you, for some reason the camera is not changing over to me, so I got to go to gallery view. One thing that I thought was interesting. Tell me again how many square feet one of those puck sensors will actually cover.
The indoor sensor covers 100-foot radius, which is 31,415 square feet. That's pi times 3.14. So that's a lobby, part of a hallway, outside in a parking garage floor. The outdoor sensors will cover 150 square foot radius. So that's 71,000 square feet.
150 square foot radius. Okay. I'm trying to picture what that looks like. So on an average school, that would be, every corner, obviously. Would that cover everything? I mean, how many would you need, I'm trying to picture in my mind how many feet, like how many linear feet, like one's on the corner, and then how many feet down the building do you have to have another one?
You'd actually want to put them in your lobby area. You'd want to have it in the center on the ceiling. Turn a corner, and you're going down a hallway. You want to have one in the first part of the hallway and at the very end, in case so somebody from shooting from behind, you want to get the shot picked up from both ends of the hallway.
Okay.
If you want to go inside the classrooms, or if you want to go inside offices or conference rooms, you have to add another sensor. But by and large, our deployments are in the high soft target areas, high value soft target areas. Where people are going to congregate: the lobbies, the cafeterias, the gymnasiums, school bus drop-off areas.
So if you had these in the halls, you would also have to have them in the individual classrooms if you wanted that part covered, because would the walls and doors affect the ability to detect that energy?
If the door's closed, yes, sir. Okay.
Interesting. All right. So in the hallways, though, every linear, how many feet, a few hundred feet, I would think, or 70, 80, 90 feet between sensors?
180 to 190 feet. We overlap.
Okay.
So we have a 100-foot radius detection. So we want to place them every 180, 190 feet. So we have a little bit of 10-foot overlap.
Okay. So it would not, so it's going to cover the public areas. When I say public, I mean the high traffic areas like hallways and then outside. And that is going to be, I would think, pretty effective, because that's definitely where a shooter is going to try and kill people, is where the majority of people are. Now, like in the case of Nicholas Cruz at Marjorie Stoneman High School, he went up the stairwell and shot through the window in the door in 2 classrooms and killed people. He didn't actually go through those doors, but he was in the hallway when that happened. So that immediately would have notified the appropriate people. So let me walk through this to make sure I understand it. So someone fires a gun, the sensor picks it up, it immediately, it recognizes the energy, and if I'm not mistaken, it knows what caliber weapon it is?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it recognizes the caliber weapon. It can be programmed for analytics and smart stuff so that it turns specifically the attention of the camera brain, the CCTV camera brain, to the appropriate cameras. So that is now spotlighted for anybody watching. Yeah.
Yes.
At the same time, it notifies I would imagine whoever you've set up in the menu and list of people to be notified in this instance, correct?
That's correct.
Which would also obviously include law enforcement
Yes, sir.
and first responders. And then is there the ability to coordinate a lockdown? I mean, I would assume that's an add-on, and I don't know if that's something your company or one of the other, like an access control company would do integration with your system. But I would think there's some kind of physical access control that can then be implemented.
Yes, sir. So we have an open architecture, open API. It's using the REST protocol. We can integrate with access control systems to provide that, the activation of locking down doors. In cases, Virginia Beach shooting, the shooter discharged a firearm, a suppressed weapon, which we can also pick up because it's still the same energy level and waveform. But he discharged a 45 at his former boss. At that point, our outside Dragonfly would have picked up the shots fired, notified people indoors that they had an active shooter threat outside, would have called 911, and also would have facilitated a lockdown of those perimeter doors so we had no further access into the building. We called it geofencing.
Yeah.
So this is all happening within seconds of shots fired, and if you talk to, or if you saw the interviews of the people that survived, we didn't know what it was outside. We didn't know that there was an active shooter threat outside. And when they heard the noise inside, he shot 2 more people in the inside lobby area, somebody seeking a permit and one of the employees. They heard shots fired, but they were convinced it was construction equipment. They're walking outside in the hallway. What is that? What is that? And nobody knew, and probably 11 people could have gone home that night had they, been alerted that there was a threat outside. And this is the same thing with Parkland. We were contacted by a couple of other parents, that these kids thought it was a fire drill or an active shooter drill. They heard in the weeks prior that there was going to be a drill coming up, and they were all looking on their phones, it's another drill, on the second floor or whatever, and exiting out the back hallway. So these people really weren't sure what was going on. And this would have activated that alert within a couple of seconds of shots fired. There is a threat. This is real. This technology is 6 Sigma. If you get alerted, you have shots fired, you have shots fired. It's not like, well, let me go double check. This is first alert. And then we can autonomously get these notifications out. Remember, everybody set up the perimeter and he's running around inside doing whatever he was doing for quite some time, and this would have kind of put a lot more things into action a lot sooner and could have mitigated some of, the tragedy that happened there.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with the Sandy Hook, and we kind of modeled a lot of things after Sandy Hook and the Aurora Theater and the Pulse nightclub and the TSA agent in LA. It was the information wasn't getting out as fast as it should have, and then we found that a half a second, a quarter of a second, a millisecond meant everything to that person, that was in that building.
Yeah. Wow, that sounds like a great system. Now, I am not a salesperson for you, obviously. I just love the technology and talking to you guys. So that's why I wanted to have you on. And since I'm not a salesperson, I am going to play devil's advocate because, if this is something I'm going to stand behind and promote and tell people about, I want to know everything that there is to know, strengths and weaknesses. So you said something that frankly kind of blew my mind a little bit. You said that even with a silencer on, even with a muffling device, which should, for all intents and purposes, to a layperson, change the energy of a shot of a round fired. You're telling me that the system would still pick that up and recognize what caliber that is?
Yes, sir. It's still creating. So it's not a noise-based sensor. It's an energy level and waveform. And what a silencer does is silence the weapon. It's making it quiet. It's the same energy level, and it's the same ballistic energy level that's being created from the discharge of a projectile from a round.
Yeah. So Michael, from background just on farms, is that as that round, if you're for your layman's term and then what Jen said, it's still making the noise going through the air, even though it's been silenced. It may be a blank. It may not be a full weapon. We will pick up blanks even. But it's the sound of that projectile traveling through the air that's going to set that sensor off. And I think that's pretty much that's what stands us out against a lot of the competitors. Again, like you talked originally and Jen said, we are not a listening device. It doesn't act as a listening device. It only picks it up once you hear, that noise,
Okay.
that the ambient noises make.
Okay.
Great job.
I think it finally just clicked for me. So I truly understand it. So it kept going in my mind that it had something to do with the audio waves, the frequency and so forth. But now that you said that, if you take the compensator, this muffling, everything out of it, I now picture what you see in diagrams or mock-ups or whatever video, fancy Hollywood stuff. I see a bullet going through the air with the lines of energy or whatever being separated by the bullet. And so it's actually how the atmosphere moves based on the projectile. Would that be an accurate way
Yes.
to describe it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So now I feel much smarter than I did 5 minutes ago. So thank you for that. All right. Well, that's pretty great. So tell me what kind of clients you're putting these systems in.
Do you want to answer that, Dave?
Yeah, we're basically every critical infrastructure within the United States. As you know, there's 16 different critical infrastructures, but there's law enforcement. Interesting. There's low-income housing sectors. They're using a lot of the outdoor units versus the indoor because they have shots fired because there's drug deals going on. Gangs are happening. Especially the energy sector, they're mandated by the energy sector actually to have some of these in their transmission locations because of NERC regulations. So we're putting them in at different venues all across the United States, and that's now growing outside of the United States into the government sectors.
Okay.
So John, if you want to add anything to that about more about all the ones that were added before I started.
Yeah, so Michael, again, we designed this for primarily Sandy Hook, the Aurora Theater, TSA, and LAX, and what have you. And so we began our deployments initially in K through 12, but we were breaking out into different verticals. Hospitals have become a very active vertical for us. Houses of worship, as Dave was saying, the SIP and FERC and NERC folks, and we're actually deployed pretty soon, throughout the world for different applications, whether it be a perimeter fence line, school bus stops, city bus stops, airports, just about anywhere where the public is going to gather, malls, synagogues, I said houses of worship. So it's kind of breaking out into everywhere. And every time we think we have we had that vertical covered, somebody called me from South Carolina and wanted to protect his duck preserve, and people were poaching his ducks, and so we're going there now.
Wow. So
Yeah.
tell me, so schools, healthcare, government facilities, and you said anywhere the public gathers, but it's private areas as well. Like there's probably government buildings where the public is not welcome, that that your system would be very effective. Yeah.
Oh yes, for the insider threat, is always consideration, and is constantly a consideration. The Metcalf incident where there's no people present there at the transformers, and somebody sat there for 12 or 15 or 20 hours or whatever it was and shot out the transformers, disrupting power supply for a number of people. But so pretty much anywhere. We are deployed with some energy companies for remote sites that kids are ATVing out in the middle of nowhere and pulling out their shotguns and shooting at their assets that are deployed all over these areas. So there's application almost anywhere.
Now, tell me, if you can, why energy sensing is more effective than sound sensing.
Well, it goes back. It's Six Sigma technology. The using the energy level and the waveform, you can determine within 99.999999% certainty this is shots fired. And then using the energy level and waveform, we can also give you that same certainty that the ballistic of the weapon being used. That's actual science. It's physics. There's a lot of things included in that. The technology that that I looked at that had been out there for a long period of time is basically it's called acoustic signature match, and it's a scientific term for a loud bang. So it's a sensor waiting for a loud bang. This, kids screaming, a locker, locker slamming, a backfire of a car, what causes this technology to alert. And that's not effective. We can't do that in schools. We can't be tripping the alarms for loud noise all the time. And this technology is very power hungry. So you have to run, like I said, the Cat 5, Cat 6 to it. They don't have the detection range. Usually it's about 2,500 square feet, which isn't really that great. So you have to deploy them all over the place indoor. And if you're paying $2,000 or whatever it is that they cost for those sensors, it's cost prohibitive. And a lot of the focus groups that we had were, large school districts, large corporate environments, and an airport. And the airport told us that the wired technology ate up, just the installation cost ate up his entire security budget for an entire year.
So
this made this technology, worth all that more, to pursue and to deploy. We have the better detection range. We can be wireless. You don't have to run Cat 6 to it. We made it a passive system, so it's only going to come alert when there's shots fired. Something very close to it is going to come alert, and it's going to go, oh, that wasn't a threat, and go back to sleep. And then once a day, it's a supervised device. It's going to report to the EOC that, hey, I'm here, all good. I did a 3-point check. If you have any updates, send them to me now. And then it goes back to sleep. So it's and again, it's very innocuous. I mean, aesthetically, it's very pleasing. You don't even, it's just like a smoke detector on the ceiling.
So you're saying that they're wireless, and the batteries last how long?
7 years.
7 years. So they're wireless. They're less expensive than the audio sensing devices?
Yes.
Okay. And if I'm understanding correctly, a loud snapping or a bang that could sound to that type of ear to be a gunshot, it may not necessarily be. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
But you can't fake a 223 round going through the atmosphere at however many, 100,000 or 1,000 feet per second. You can't fake that, and there's nothing that's going to duplicate that unless it's an actual 223 round going through the atmosphere. So it can't be fooled.
Correct.
Okay. Well, I'm impressed. I wouldn't have had you on here if I didn't think it was pretty cool, but listening to the deep details of the technology and stuff, it certainly sounds like something that that I would love to see in schools, at least. Because look, let's face it, first responders, a big problem with many of these situations that have happened in the past have been the response time. Even when law enforcement knows what it is and they get there, they don't know where to start. I think certainly in the situation at Marjorie Stoneman High School, when Nicholas Cruz was firing, if they'd have known what floor or what part of the building, that probably would have helped. I don't know if it would have stopped it. I don't know if it would have solved the problem, but I would think we know for a fact, and we teach this with A.L.I.V.E, the faster the response by law enforcement, the sooner the assailant is going to either self-terminate or divert their attention away from would-be victims to law enforcement so that they're not killing innocents anymore. So if law enforcement knows to enter from the east side of the building because that's where the guy is, that is certainly going to lower the body count, I think. And ultimately, what we're trying to do is make it so that these active shooters are not successful more often than not. So they're just going to lose interest because they're going to be like, hey, I'm probably not going to get away with this, or I'm not going to be able to, kill as many people or, get the notoriety I want. I'm going to fail. And we know that their biggest fear is failure. They want to kill as many people possible in a short amount of time as possible. So if this technology actually prevents the mass killing in a short amount of time, maybe they'll choose some other way to deal or cope with their lives. Maybe they'll join the gym or do something productive instead of taking out, all of their issues in this way. So I think
trying to kill as many people as they possibly can, in the shortest period of time, and that's what we're trying to interrupt.
That's exactly right.
And then the situational awareness for law enforcement and first responders. You know, the other big piece of this is if you look at the Aurora, Illinois, the factory shooting is you know, this man had full intent on killing his boss that day. He knew he was going to be terminated. He shot his union rep, the HR director. He went outside and he shot a few more people in his warehouse. And then he took a position somewhere in the warehouse, however minutes until law enforcement arrived. And then he just started picking off the police officers as they were responding because they didn't know where he was. So this would give them that, you know, this is where he is. He's held up over here on the second floor. He's up in the, you know, rafters or somewhere. This would give him, you know, give them that situational awareness so they can take him out faster than, you know, sending in officer after officer and who's getting, you know, shot at. And the other part of it is, you know, and Dave brought up this point a number of times, is the people who are injured are going to be bleeding out on, it's graphic, but they're going to be injured. Law enforcement comes in, their primary and only concern is to take out, neutralize a shooter. So with this technology, we can get the people that are injured triaged faster. This is where he started. This is where we need to send EMS after the shooter's been neutralized. He started on the second floor. Let's get EMS there.
I see what you're saying.
5 to 9 minutes. Yeah.
So it will determine the distance, or help determine the distance between the bad guy and some people that are already fallen. So if we know he's on the east end and we know that there's people, you know, bleeding out on the west end, we could probably send some EMS guys on the west end while law enforcement is confronting the guy on the east end. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Okay. Right. Or even if after these neutralized, and usually they won't send EMS into a hot zone. You know, they started adding the, you know, the SWAT EMS folks, the tactical EMS, but typically in the Aurora Theater and TSA, if they don't know where the shooter is, they're not sending anybody in. So once they do send somebody in, at least we can get them to the right spot, that they're not running around a 150,000 square foot building trying to find people that are injured. They're going to know where he's been and where it began, and using cameras and the existing security systems to find out where those shots came from first.
Yeah, Michael, the beauty of a couple of things like Jen said, and that, you know, from my background, and Jen and I go around and we do a lot of talks and presentations to different venues of, you know, critical infrastructure, whoever it may be, is that what she just said is a perfect analogy, but it's twofold. If this particular system is tied to the camera, you're going to get a video of where that person is too. You're going to see what kind of weapon they have. And the reason I say that's important from my background is that twofold. One, the officer that's on the SWAT team, having been there, I know what I'm up against. I know what kind of vest to wear. I don't want to go against a .223 round that's traveling at 2,700 feet per second versus a 9mm round. I would know what kind of vest to wear coming into the scene. But then the second fold in that, and especially from your teaching, is I'm also able to alert the trauma centers that, by the way, get ready for shotgun wounds, get ready for rifle wounds, or it's potentially pistol rounds, or maybe it's all three. But, you know, that's what happens to the hospitals. And from being there many times in my career, they don't know what to prepare for when these wounds come in. Now we know what we can give them that information way ahead of time. And that trauma center is 100% prepared to deal with this .223 round.
That makes perfect sense. I get that. Yeah. With the cameras tied in, man, you know, look, we know that these things, my book, 10 Minutes to Live, says it's that because the biggest body count is usually 10 minutes or less. But I think 69% of these things are over in less than 5 minutes.
Yes.
So if we can get law enforcement there in 4 minutes, if we can save 1 minute to shorten this incident, we can literally save dozens of lives. So that's great. Well, I applaud you guys for what you've done. It sounds like it's a pretty good system. It just so happens that we were all going to meet in Las Vegas next week at the ISC West Conference, the largest, you know, security technology thing in the world every year. And because of, you know, the coronavirus, they've decided to push it out till I think July, which is going to probably screw up a lot of people's plans who've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on this. Some of the big companies spend so much money. So, but it is what it is. So, you know, we've got to do what we can to avoid getting sick. I would like to think that this thing will be over and forgotten in short order when, I don't know if it's going to take a vaccine. I mean, not everybody gets a vaccine for the flu, but it runs its course in a matter of weeks, and then, you don't see it much anymore. I'm hoping that's the situation, but I don't know. Either way, it's unfortunate we're not going to see each other until then, but I'm sure we'll get together or be talking much in the future. I am going to certainly promote this to the A.L.I.V.E clients who want a solution like this, because again, training and physical apparatus is what it takes to create the highest level of security, awareness, and survivability of these incidences. So, I'm pretty excited to find a solution like this. I want to mention too, real quick, and I'm going to share my screen. This is what happens when people do what we say, and that is, can you see this guy's face?
Yes.
Yes.
So this is a UPS worker was planning on a mass shooting, had 20,000 rounds of ammo and several guns apparently staged, ready to go. And somebody, he had said, and this type of violence it's a process. It's not an event. It doesn't just happen. It starts and it evolves. All the mass shootings we know of were planned out, took time, incubated. Somebody had a grievance. It got worse and worse and worse. Sometimes they leave videos, journals, manifestos, and oftentimes people go, oh yeah, he said something, but I just discarded it, or I didn't think he was telling the truth, or whatever. Somebody actually that knew or worked with this guy, he apparently said something that was enough to trigger somebody's brain and common sense and go, maybe I should say something to someone. So they brought it to the authorities' attention, and they went and nabbed this guy. And all indicators are that he had intended to go back to the UPS office where he worked and kill as many people as he possibly could. So I think that is a nice little example and testimonial to what we teach in A.L.I.V.E, and that is, one, keep your ears open, your radar on, your antenna up. And when something gets caught in that antenna or on your radar, you got to do something about it. You got to say something about it.
Yes.
This can head off, thwart, completely eliminate an active shooter event if we can stop them before they happen. So there was a zero body count because people did the right thing, and that was they recognized a possible threat and they said something to someone so something could be done.
Hey, one of the other things I want to mention too, Michael, and we talk about it, we also have that is very similar to this. It's actually the same technology inside, but it's a panic button. And the reason that's important I bring it up to a lot of businesses, as Jen do, is that because they're wireless, you have a hostile termination. We know that during hostile terminations, and you know this from your teachings, that people have pulled out guns on hostile termination and kill somebody in an office where the door is closed. Been there, done that, seen it. So what's nice about the panic button, because it's portable, it can be placed anywhere, taken anywhere you want. But when it's not, during a hostile termination, it could be placed in a lobby. If somebody sees somebody approaching the building before they even get inside and fire the first shot, if they push the panic button, it does the same thing as if the shot has been fired.
So are you saying this is a remote battery operated panic button?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, that's great, because historically they've all been hardwired. So
No.
I like the fact that it's what you're doing is providing a solution that's adaptable to the situation. My company does a lot of executive protection for workplace violence mitigation, like hostile terminations. They bring us in and either sit us in the room where the termination is taking place, or next door, or whatever. So that's actually a great solution to a problem, and that is making it adaptable to the certain situation in whatever area that you're going to be in. So that's great.
And the thing too, even, once you put this system in place, right, and things change or something gets reconstructed, they're completely movable because they're GPS coordinated. If a room expands, you can add more. You can if it gets smaller, you can take one out. So it's very adaptable to any environment. And that's what attracted me when I first looked at EAGL, and talked to Jennifer before I came to work here. I know no other system out there on the planet that does that.
It sounds like a really, really good system. So you guys are awesome. I have never asked for anyone to sponsor this podcast, so I sponsor myself. So I'm going to give my own commercial. For anybody interested that's not already aware or looked at the A.L.I.V.E Active Shooter Survival Training Program, the website is activeshootersurvivaltraining.com. That it will take you to the website where you can find the courses, whether they be in person, the online program, or the instructor certification course. Our next instructor certification course, if you're interested, if you're in the security industry or you work at a company where you're responsible for the safety and security of others, you can become a certified instructor of the A.L.I.V.E program. It's a 2-day course that is going to be April 24th and 25th. We do the podcast, like I said, every couple of weeks. We've got a YouTube channel if you want to watch other podcasts or see any of the videos or news clips or anything from the program. And I want to thank our guests today, Jennifer and David from EAGL Technologies. I think you have a great product. I'm looking forward to learning more about it and very, very likely promoting it to my clients because, again, training is great, but we need training and physical security apparatus if we're going to create the strongest bubble of security around our kids and our employees and the places that we go and so forth. So I want to thank you guys again very, very much. And hopefully in 2 weeks when I have another one of these, we won't have any new active shooter events to talk about. But if we do, we're going to break those down. Anyway, guys, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you soon. And thank you to all the viewers. Everybody have a great day.
All right.
Thank you
you,
very
Michael.
much.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.